Well, what do we have here? The original Nintendo Power #1. Oh man, this brings back such great memories. A 9.8, a CGC 9.8 copy of this magazine just sold for over $100,000 into the six-figure mark. I know one guy that's smiling is one of my viewers, Rick, who has been collecting and grading Sports Illustrateds and other publications, particularly historical sports type publications. I actually have one of these. I only have one of the graded Sports Illustrated, and it is the first cover for Hulkamania, which is kind of ironic, right? Because we're also going to be talking about a wrestling card in a minute. But for Nintendo Power, this is a really interesting sale. I've watched a couple of reaction videos to this. One, Sean from Reserved Investments, who I had on the show, about a week ago to talk all things collectibles. I'll put a link in the video description to check that out. About a 2-hour talk, but I really like Sean's channel, Reserved Investments, because he does really kind of give practical style advice. Some folks would say he's too negative, he's too bearish, but he really does offer both sides. And in this video, he surprised me a little bit because a lot of times when he'll cover Funko Pops or he'll cover Beanie Babies or whatever, he's talking about how it's nuts that people are buying into these things. But he actually does say that he might add a copy, not the 9.8 Nintendo Power #1, but more of like a 9.4, kind of in that range. He had an interesting take on kind of which grades to buy. I'll probably do a separate video for that one because I thought it was just really interesting. He was having like another conversation, and I want to make sure I shout out that interview. So I'll probably do a separate video on that because I think that could be helpful for everyone. If you go back in time when I was a kid, I believe that first Nintendo Power came out in 1990. I was 9 years old, and that was right in the heat of the original NES really picking up steam in the United States. And then of course it led to the Super Nintendo and then on, N64. But this original Nintendo Power is so important because nowadays you jump on the internet. If you need to figure out how to beat a game, you jump on YouTube, and YouTube will have a walkthrough, a tutorial on how to beat a certain game or how to get past a certain point. The only thing you had in 1990 was Nintendo Power magazine, and then I believe they also had a hotline that you could call for tips if it wasn't in Nintendo Power. But a lot of times the secrets of the games, the only way you would find these out is in that issue, in that coming Nintendo Power issue. And so there is some massive importance behind this particular magazine. Now, whether it's worth $100,000 or $1 million or whatever people are going to pay for this higher end collectible, that's going to be up to the individual. And now we've seen a six-figure sale, so that's going to get people's attention of like, wow, someone actually paid 6 figures for a 9.8, which on the CGC grading scale is it's kind of like a 10 grade on a sports card. I've talked on my channel a lot about culture cards and culture collectibles, non-sports style stuff, because I think that it's a really interesting space. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm big into Stranger Things cards. That's really kind of my fun side PC on the non-sports side. I've got buddies flipping. Steve is into music cards. Other guys I know are into Harry Potter autograph cards. There's all these kind of fun little side PCs with this sort of thing, but the Mario Brothers IP really right now, especially with the movie just going off, they have this new animated Super Mario Brothers movie that breaks all these records. They're building a theme park for Mario Brothers down in Orlando. I mean, Nintendo is not slowing down at all. So this is kind of one of those IPs that's a fun watch. It's fun to collect these things, and it hits on the heartstrings for me going all the way back to 1988 Christmas when I got my NES, and I can actually see it in my head where sitting down and hooking it up, playing in the living room with Duck Hunt, the Duck Hunt laser gun. I mean, I'm about to turn 42. If you're right in this age bracket here, then this hits all the feels for you. This is an IP in general that has a lot of momentum. I'm not saying that particular collectible has a lot of momentum. What I'm saying is just the IP in general. Nintendo and Mario Brothers, it's got lots of different characters in the same fashion that you have the Marvel Universe. It's Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and those guys. They built out a lot of great DC characters as well that have created kind of this cinematic universe behind it. I mean, Nintendo has a ton of cool characters that they could build a movie around. I was actually thinking about that when I was watching the Super Mario Brothers movie. I mean, you have Ninja Gaiden, you have Kung Fu, you have all these different characters that they came out with that they could make separate movies on if they wanted to build out their own animated universe. And they could easily do it if they decide that they want to go that route. And so this will be a fun watch to see kind of which of these culture collectibles, is going to really move the needle. The one thing I think that we have to watch for, I think it's important to take note of, is which collectibles are getting new interest from third-party graders that are established. And what I mean by that is, graded video games, as much as they've taken a lot of heat, over the last couple of years with the price increases and decreases and this and that and whatever, I think we are starting to see some stabilization, and there's there's two big companies that grade video games. You have WATA, which is owned by Collectors Universe now, which also owns PSA. And you also have CGC and that group that is grading video games now. They're popping out into the market. I don't know if there will be another one added, but those are two companies with massive financial backing that are grading video games. And so for a lot of folks like me that are just looking for, hey, store value, cool things that can hold value that might go up over time, great. This is something to watch. You know, I know that they've got graded VHS and they've got cassettes and vinyl that they've started talking about. I don't know if those things will hold, but 30 years ago, 25 years ago, when third-party graders came out for sports cards, I'm sure that a lot of them got pushback of this is a crazy idea and it's all stupid and nobody's going to want to do this. And now look at it. It might take decades, but 10, 20, 30 years from now, if there's big third-party grading companies that are interested in this, that are kind of adding value in different ways, it'll be interesting to watch to see how those markets unfold and what the next generation is going to look at as collectible and what they're going to want as adults. You got to think about what is the 10, 15, 20-year-old going to want when they're 40, 50, when they start having more disposable income. We also have a huge rock black Prizm 1-of-1 sale, another six-figure sale. That I know that's big into wrestling cards is Drake from Drake's PC. I know he's got some monster wrestling cards. I know him because he's also a huge Drew Brees PC guy. So I go back and forth on him sometimes on different card buys related to Drew Brees. I'm in a Drew Brees collectors group club on IG that's kind of fun to go back and forth on. I've got an announcement for that group. Actually, Drake, if you're watching, got some good news that I'll share later. But Drake has got some big time wrestling cards. And so with this sort of sale, does it mean that all wrestling cards go up? No, obviously not. I've been saying it forever that I think that each individual card really has their own market. The one thing though that I think that it can do is just as far as state of mind goes, when you have a six-figure card or a seven-figure card happen in a category and that's a new thing, obviously if it's a legitimate sale and everything is cool, everything's good. I think that what it does though is if we're going back to that store value thing, if you are collecting with the idea of I would like to hold value in these, or hopefully they grow value over time, this is positive sentiment in that direction. This is saying like, okay, these cards have the ability to sell for this price point. And if there's another one, then it's further data points showing like, okay, there's enough interest in this to where there could be some growth, over time in this particular category. And we're starting to see that where it's funny, there's a lot of sports cards that got very overheated. We talk about it on the channel quite a bit over the last few years. And now you are seeing kind of other categories that are still hitting record highs outside of sports cards. So this is a very interesting time. Obviously, look, economically, there's a lot of weird things going on. These are kind of one-off sales, so it's not as if there's six-figure sales happening here and there all the time, but it's something to watch. And for me, as somebody that collects a variety of different things in many categories, I love to follow it. It's fun. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.